the beautiful, the terrible, the ugly, the confusing, the self, and the other, and not look away and not give up.
And Maya, in her visual work, which you may know from her Instagram, Paper Hermitage, Kat features paper wasp and birds' nests, ants, ink made from onions, and sometimes us, we who, we hope, humorously refer to ourselves as the Inland Northwest Jellyfish Collective. Because we share our work in draft form, we jellies also appear in Kat's poems as cut scraps dragged home and pasted in. And so tonight you'll see this same collage technique during her reading. We'll each pop in to read a poem in conversation with one of Kat's.
I'm Laura. Sometimes these will be poems to which Kat's work responds, and other times they will be related thematically by imagistic threads picked up from the seafloor. We like to think of ourselves as the cephalopod in the self-portrait. We are honored to participate in Kat's reading tonight because she is a poet we all deeply admire and a friend whom we all love. Please help us welcome Kat Smith.
Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who are here joining me through the power of the internet. Especially thank you if you're in a different time zone than me. I know this reading was designed with the Pacific time zone in mind. So if you're elsewhere and it's late, I appreciate you. I don't know if you can see it. I'm wearing my cephalopod ring. It's like tentacles. It kind of gives me superpowers. It was a gift from my friend Ellen. And it appears in the first poem I'm going to read for you tonight. Ode to Super Friends and Nature Television. Days when the planet seems particularly poised for disaster, I wear both my cephalopod t-shirt and my cephalopod ring. Have you heard of a more Anthropocene coping mechanism? I do it for the birds, with nowhere to land at the critical point in their migration, for the skewed seasons and the jungle ants with their parasite-skewered brains. Cave dwellers evolve to survive their sealed-over eyes. Who needs eyes on a planet wobbling its axis like a tilt-a-whirl? No wonder I wake motion sick. The fact of death and the ocean and the mouthparts of insects brimming the list of things I can't control. Wonder twin powers activate. Form of a fang, a bloodthirsty proboscis, a tidal turnaround. I wear pants the color of a sea cucumber, wash my octopus shirt on the saltwater setting. Anything to understand the universe's categories. Bats aren't birds, but they're winged. Still life and stillbirth sound like they would mean the same thing, but they don't. Mammals are peculiar, our young feeding on us. Humans are more peculiar yet, building intricate reefs of plastic and dread. The beauty of birds isn't flight. It's how they let their young cram pointy beaks down their throats. On a planet poised for disaster, I track my desires in a bullet journal, cover my mammary glands with a boneless bioluminescence. Delicate dangers of life in the wild dominate my cue. I watch a robin side-eye me with its bird face, asking what I did with its family. I've never been good at discerning the joyful cries of children at play from the backyard yowl of a cat fight. If I weren't such a creature of habit, I'd be a creature of soil, tunneling a nest that writhes the earth's surface. I am 60% water and less than 1% salt. And when ocean levels rise enough to wash us from our perches, I'll have zero control over my need to breathe air, which is not in my control to begin with. Since we're all here on the internet, I thought I'd read a poem about the internet. It's something I do. Photos of pig that appears to have blue fat beneath skin shared on social media. Oh, wildest blue. Oh, wild boar, scalpeled open, peeled back. Let me click you. Let me like until your blue fat glows. Oh, phenomenal mystery, you're so bright already. Oh, terrible, terrific, shot, dead, so someone could snapshot you. Oh, shareable beast, oh, trending freak animal. The internet wants to know if I want to know more. And how could I not want to know more about pig's blue innards, to see in the photographs a bloody hand holding back the skin? I want to press my pink finger against your marbled blue bubblegum fat. Oh, how I want that hand to be my hand. Oh, swine, how you bait me, and I cannot touch you, I can only click. Oh, pig that appears, I am also blue, and though my shade is more metaphorical, it's like you know me. And the internet, it knows me, it says recommended for you. Someone else who writes about pigs is my friend Ellen Welcker. She writes about pigs and wolves and whales and rams and our ram hands, which is this beautiful metaphor she created to describe our complicity in the violence of the world. And her poems always leave me in awe, and I am so grateful to have her poems in my life and to call her my friend. So I'm going to introduce, I just did introduce. Please welcome my friend Ellen Welcker.
Ellen, you're muted.
Forgot that part. Sorry. It's called The Sea. A tiny kitten scratches my palm. Later, I find the claw embedded like a pearl or a fossil in the meat of me. I give a puppy a bloody nose that won't stop. That night, I blow up the American buffalo. I push it off a cliff. It's my anniversary. I don't want this to be about me. I heave a beached orca into a plastic bag. It quietly doubles over on itself. I twist the top of the bag and I look for a bread tie. There's none to be found. I push it out into collective shame and anxiety. It's called the sea. My name is unpronounceable. The whale's name is Whale.
Do you want to see more? Our outer space photos confirm water on Mars. Maybe not now, but at some point in the past. Either way, this comes as a relief, considering our whales have been swimming upriver, captured on drone camera footage. Not the same cameras we sent to Mars, but they could be. There could be whales on Mars. We could send our whales there, pilot whales, pilotless drones, Mars in relief, a planet of lakes and rivers flowing the whole Martian year. When Martian salmon spawn, the red tug of renewal pulls them upstream. Our whales are devolving, evolving into salmon, all to the chordate root. Maybe on Mars, the past is the future. The rover's name is Curiosity. The whale's name is Doomed.
So this next poem of Kat's, Legends Say is the title, is one of my favorites to hear aloud for the way it reveals and then obscures the stuff it's made of so musically, almost tidally.
Legends say, the maps furrow the palm. They vein a varicose thigh. If you'd been born here, if you'd been born. If your father worked graveyard and told your mother just a few hours sleep, and he dreamed the saw's whine while she breathed through each contraction. If the maps broke when they stripped her veins and the bleeding wouldn't quit. To squelch or stanch or stop a rock-bound river. To dam the blood and its antibodies, a river's platelets and plated fish. To unbox a collection of antique plates and find hidden there a photograph of your mother holding a child you've never seen, its fish face gasping. If you'd been born as wood is split, the sawmill crying. If you'd stopped your ears and hadn't heard the foghorn, the fairy horn, the Lady of the Lake's tragic story. If you'd looked to your palm and chosen another path. If the trails were marked, if the sign read 1,000 miles to nowhere, head due west. That poem reflects a little bit on my upbringing on the west side of the state. And my dear friend Maya also grew up on the west side of the state, and we weren't in the same town and we're a few years apart in age, but sometimes I feel as though we were simultaneously tromping through the same mossy forests, among the ferns, absorbing the fog. So when Maya and I met as adults, it was almost as though we already had this connection that had been forged by place. And I'm very, very pleased to now welcome Maya Jewell Zeller.
Thanks, Kat. When I say heart, I mean in the heart of a dark forest. In photographs, the human heart can resemble a lightning-wrapped fruit, or something your mother might cook, your father eat, while trees sketch their final streaks in the late light, and you whisper some dull news of family through the telephone. Who is pregnant again, and who needs to drink less, and who filed for divorce. If you knew very little, you might mistake the small heart of a fawn for that of a girl, the way the hunter hoped the queen would when he brought her that still warm bundle from the wood where he let Snow White wander, stumbling into briars and the moon-bound howls of wolves. Once it is believed you are dead already, you can overcome all kinds of curses. You might walk right into a magic house where small men care for you and you for them for years until foolishly you eat the same treat Eve, that witch, touched to Adam's lips so he would fall upon the sleep of knowledge, that stupor we all crumble helplessly into when we are old enough to listen to adults and mirrors and the rustle of a reptile or a foot on the trail. My mother tells me of my brother's congestive heart failure, stage C, how his legs swell and he sleeps sitting up in his chair, his 6 children sneaking past like elves while he snores. Oh, bright apple, thumping metaphor, poison darling, you climb into my ruby throat. It's been so long since you thought I really cared. Cruel sister, civil girl, ink still. In the tale sometimes, the mirror breaks at the queen's rage and she storms into the forest and the dead girl wakes to bluebirds and warm breakfast, unaware that just beyond the bramble, pulsing like ventricles, a thick cloaked woman she once called mother paces the morning, races toward her future, a blade of glass in her hand.
Self-portrait with Cephalopod and Digitalis purpurea for Maya. Sometimes a girl doesn't need a reason to place a foxglove blossom on her tongue. It's enough to like the idea that the heart could stop because of flowers. It's that or be crushed like ichthyosaurus in the kraken's grasp by my own sadness, fossilized in unnatural linear patterns, finally measured by the geometry of loss. I don't need another reason to fear the ocean. I already know it could swallow me from the inside if I tried to breathe it in. Everything beautiful is dangerous, and attempting beauty is a risk, like the dress my mom's friend made me for the 8th grade dance. So often things don't hang together the way I imagine. That seafoam bow over my pale, scant breasts looked nothing like the pattern promised. It made my head hurt knowing how little meets our expectations. So I refused the last dance and my date left without me. He spent the next 4 years pretending I wasn't there, my shadow scuttling the halls of the high school beside him. Sometimes a girl doesn't need a reason to want to disappear behind the unseen framework of collarbones. I think mine would look lovely in a cephalopod's garden after she had spit away the sateen straps. Have you ever wondered what's beneath the skin working? I know so little, I wouldn't recognize my own heart if I saw it outside my body. I wouldn't know my own bones arranged in an ocean bed, an octopus coaxing them to root in the sea floor until their stalks grew thick with mouth-like blooms.
Thanks for that, Kat. I don't know that I've heard you read that aloud. Wow, which is so wild. So Kat and I love to pass poems back and forth and kind of fling lines at each other, the way that Whitman's spider flings out the filaments. And that's something that Kat does so well with her poems. And when I have had the great grace to teach them in my classrooms, my students always fall in love. And when they are bound to be lit majors, become writing majors because of Kat's works. And one of my students, who I think is here tonight if her internet is working, did an imitation of this poem for Trending Tragedy, which everyone fell in love with. And Kat, will you read Poem for Trending Tragedy next?
Yes, thank you, Maya. Poem for Trending Tragedy. I am trying to think about the circus collapse. I am trying to think about the kidnapped schoolgirls, about the extremist who says they are his for the selling. I am trying, but celebrity overrides. Look, the young country star held at gunpoint. Look, the Instagram argument, the lip sync fiasco. Someone else is talking, someone other than who we thought, not who ought. I am trying to speak about the convict whose execution went wrong, to parse the name of the chemical cocktail, to recall the names of the dead. I know what I know changes nothing. It augurs nothing, not when the plague, it turns out, was not the plague, and we know this now, and not when the skull on the ocean floor holds tens of thousands of years of answers. The mouse that scurries the floorboards could be an old mouse rejuvenated by a younger mouse's blood, only to meet the trap. I am trying to remember those miners in Chile, caught miles below the ground, but first I must set my mind on things above, turn my eyes to the clouds, the whence from which my help comes, the internet sky I am told will shelter me from collapse. How many days were they down there? How many miles? It seems longer now, deeper, years and light years. Imagine that researcher's proposal, his own doubt as he pondered the tiny needle as he coined the phrase mouse transfusion. He'd have to ignore so many skeptics, spend so many years paying attention to small creatures, letting the world flicker past, world beset with wars, world too impatient for war, world too impatient for what endures. I'm gonna read another hometown poem, another Port Angeles, Washington poem. This is called The Danger. It was the saddest day of our lives. The day we learned the new 8th grade homeroom teacher had driven through the South Shore Road guardrail 2 weeks into the school year. I don't remember her name. Miss something, Miss not from around here. But even so, it was sad. The saddest we'd ever been. Even those of us in Mrs. Jones's class across the hall who'd barely seen Miss So-and-so's face, but whose friends could swear she was young and she was so nice and pretty, maybe, as they usually are, and new to our town. The roads curve without warning. Poor Miss What's-Her-Name, born without our compass, without the maps that live inside you if you're raised here, furrowing a hairline or veining a varicose thigh. Poor Miss no longer with us. She was only trying to learn the danger the rest of us can't seem to shake. And poor us. Poor young servers, 13 and teacherless, and not the ones flung through the rain-slicked windshield to the vast and glittering lake. When I write poems about my youth and my adolescence, I sometimes think about Laura Reed, because Laura is a master of writing poems about childhood and capturing something in those poems that is not at all precious and really gets at the anxiety of the experience of childhood, and in a way that's honest and funny and conversational and will punch you in the gut when you least expect it. Laura is also a fantastic neighbor, and I am it's been a wonderful experience to have Laura living basically across the street from me. I recommend having a poet as a neighbor. I recommend having poets for friends. I recommend having friends for neighbors, especially if you need to go have a mammogram and you don't have a car and your friend is like, sure, you can drive my Prius. So please welcome Laura Reed.
Thanks, Kat. The poem I'm going to read does have a reference to my Prius, which is how it connects, but it's not named. It's called Wicked. Here I am in the middle of my life, or maybe even closer to the end, safe in a house with a gabled roof, like the kind I used to draw, with 2 windows over the door like eyes. The house was green and the door was red, like the first house we lived in when we moved to this town where I've always stayed. You can't see it, but my room has white wallpaper with pink poppies and the walls are cold. I know because I am always pressing my palms against them. Yesterday, my friend said that in my poems, I'm wicked, as if my poems are someone different, scraps of paper that fall out of my pockets that I hurry to pick up. She said the difference between us is that I like danger. I, the one who never leaves, who stands on my porch, looking out at each morning growing a little colder, bracing myself for each small change. I who foolishly had children, forgetting, I guess, that they would leave when the weather vane turned, like in Mary Poppins, lifted up by their umbrellas. I dropped my son at the cemetery so he could wander with his girlfriend among the graves and the rain, and I just drove away, thankful for the slow unwinding of the spool between us, the years of gradually touching him less, so that now I even forget sometimes to kiss him goodnight, and he has to come back downstairs. I want to be that girl again in my basement room, putting on green eyeliner in my mirror and listening to Cat Stevens telling me it was a wild world and it's hard to get by just upon a smile, girl. I want to be that kind of scared. It's good to pretend. But summer is almost over, and I have to stop driving around singing and thinking I'm young. I have to stand up in front of a class and try to teach them something, like how you should leave someone first, or how you might think you are a person who drew a house and moved inside it, when really you're wicked and always trying to find a way out.
This poem is called Today is the Day. Today is the day I will stand shirtless before the machine as it compresses each breast between two plates, my reward for turning 40. My God, it's hot out. And I have to walk the 10 blocks to the imaging center without antiperspirant so that no errant metal seeping through the permeable membrane we call skin can skew the image or expose my vulnerable tissues to additional unknown risk. Smoke from distant wildfires has been clinging to the sky for days now. I think I want to stop breathing, blinking too. This morning, I washed with water siphoned from my neighbor, transported by a hose linking my house to hers because someone from the city dug a hole in my yard and closed the valve. But I haven't showered yet, I thought, as though that mattered more than a foundation's seeping cracks. I know a leaking pipe in August is basically a faucet left running in a drought. Imagine the cancers I will hypothetically absorb today. Aluminum leaching toward my breasts, chemicals finding my pores as water bounces off my skin, airborne particulates landing on the sponge of my lungs. Today is the day, and yesterday and tomorrow. It'll be a while before the planet dies, and meanwhile we have to live here. Let's all make ourselves comfortable while we can, is one way to argue this inevitability. Let's sit in the stench of our bodies for the sake of our children whose stinking bodies need a planet to sit on too, is another. What camp I'm in changes daily, sometimes by the hour. Why do mammograms make me contemplate apocalypse? The end will come at us like an uncomfortable procedure that exists to detect dangers brought on by other dangers we do nothing to quell. Mostly I'm resigned to it, doing what I can when it suits me. It's too hot and smoky to walk, so my friend is letting me borrow her Prius.
That was great. Thanks, Kat. The poem I asked Kat to read next is called Most of Us Aren't Beautiful, Though Some Learn How. I chose this one because I love the title and I love how the poem keeps surprising us, which is something I think Kat's really good at. And I also love the reference to thrift store curlers.
Somehow I knew the thrift store curlers had something to do with it for you, Laura. Most of us aren't beautiful, but some learn how. The honeysuckle outgrows its trellis and climbs the weeds. I'm back where I started, stuck in a parable I cannot botanically and do not theologically believe. I've been gathering dried pods of sweet peas because I know I'll need their fragrance come spring. Flung seeds leave coiled husks behind, taut as a ringlet my hair would never hold. Stupid world, with its spilled abundance and magazine promises and thrift store curlers. By the end of the dance, my head looked slept on, aphids clinging to the welt of my homemade corsage. Blessed are the plain, for they shall come into their own one day. In a field, most likely, bandana clad, swatting at black flies burnt to the sleeves. See how much happier we, you can be when You stop caring. I hardly even want to die anymore. Thank you to Ellen and Maya and Laura for joining me. You have made this night special. This poem is called All God's Creatures God Placed in the Choir. Who resigned the rabbit to such blinking silence when squirrels are given a stridency that overwhelms the stuttering finch, drowns the pulse of the worm's twin hearts, undulating the length of its body? The puppy, left chained in the midday heat, practices every tonality of whimper until far into night, it yelps itself to sleep. 100 roosters, each with one manacled foot, caw and cry and pry at the chains that keep them just far enough apart to fend off violence. From their individual roosts, calculatingly spaced across a suburban Ohio acre, each bird answers the call of another. Each day yields 4 hours at most of silence. Otherwise, the sky is constant collision, the auditory wreckage of 20,000 swallowed reports. Or so the neighbors say. To the breeder, it's music. It's beautiful. And for Christ's sakes, it's the country. What's it for if not roosters? What's the wide world if not a cacophony of interpretation? The clicking of crickets portending autumn or plague? The roosters finally asleep when the rabbit's quiet deception turns the garden to ruin? Salt-washed pictograph just beyond the abandoned bunker. After Melissa Kwasny. To peel the bark of madrona to its pith. To drive a road grown mossy between tire tracks. To know a place by its guardrails and where they're fractured its bridges and those who've jumped. I've grown from these things, then toward them. My ancestors were first to clear cut these forests, and I must claim this as my history, the way I claim what? Loneliness, the violence of species toward species, and oil rigs midnight vanishing, blank harbor. A seagull drops its thieved muscle again and again to crack it open. I claim this exposed meat. These kelp heads bobbing the high tide look almost animal, an orderly procession of sea lions. Peel the bark from red to pale. A person could, if a person wanted to. A person could reach the deepest part. I'm just going to read one more poem, and then I'm going to turn it over to Claire. And thank you all for being here. It's strange to have a silent audience, so I'm just pretending that you all are just so wrapped and speechless by what you've heard tonight. But I've also been pretending you've been laughing a little bit because hopefully you thought some of it was funny. Thank you again for being here. And I also neglected to thank Milkweed Editions for producing this beautiful book. It is the book of my dreams. So Tree of life. To the river, whose dam was torn out 100 years too late, there is no rapture. To the dog locked in the closet, left to die, and to the road-killed eagle, you will not be spirited away. The earth rebuilds itself around us, whether or not we live, whether or not we suffer. To 20-year-old Kayla Williams, soaking up the murky edgewater when they found you, your rock-bruised body will still be here when the river is made new, food for the roots of the tree of life growing on either side, out of the snags exposed when the river finds a new course sooner than anyone expected. This is the revelatory tide, raising all things up, buried or sunken, casketed or tarp wrapped, duct taped, zip tied. This the kingdom, all flesh united, the shore revealing what the world cannot hide. Nothing hides from the river. It's a short trek from the alley to its scrub-strewn banks, the perfect disposal site, perfect resting place. What holds us here, besides a door latched and bolted on the other side, besides silt and 100-year-old concrete? Every river can hold itself back that long, biding. New alder scrub sprouts its underbrush to hide us again, and all the small living things seeking shelter, skeletons of every size. We know what company we keep, the moonlit alley's capacity for danger. How long until the dog suffocates or starves? This rocky existence abrades us all, crying till our breath runs out, nothing in our chests but some universe's inertia, some pulling through of molecules that rearrange themselves with every shift and exhalation. Had the eagle not been killed, it would still be out there, killing. This is the shore where they found her. The bed she slept in undisturbed until they drained the lake. Even this struck bird keeps one wing raised towards sky. How quickly the fish return. The tree's new leaves are glossy. They rustle in the wind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kat. Those were beautiful and funny in turn. We have lots of time for audience questions. And so if anybody would like to send me your questions in the chat, we'll have time for that. And this first one, I'm just going to jump right into it, is from Alex. They said, I've noticed that one poem is titled Parable of the Sower. I'm currently reading Octavia Butler's book. My question is, if this is a reference to Octavia Butler's book, in what ways does Butler's work affect yours?
It is not a reference to Octavia Butler's work. And I actually didn't know about that book until recently. And so I bought it as soon as I saw it. I was like, this book is for me. So if you find a connection, please let me know.
This question is from Shelby, and it is a two-part question. She is wondering what methods you use to record your inspiration and what your favorite method of revision is.
Well, favorite methods for recording my inspiration. I write things down in a journal. I often just kind of write down things one at a time as they occur to me, and look back at things. Sometimes I just, whatever has stuck in my head, then I know that that's the thing that needs to be in a poem. If it's something that just sort of won't leave me alone. Revision is I like don't even remember how to revise. Do I? I feel like it's been so long since I've actually written a poem, to be honest. The pandemic has been a weird time. And yeah, I think it varies a lot from poem to poem. Like some I need to read through a lot to kind of see if it sounds right. And sometimes I'll write a poem and I mean, it won't be perfect right away, but sometimes I'll write something and I'll just sort of know that it's almost there. So that's a non-answer for you.
I have a question. I am always really, I have been in the last year really interested in the ways that the pandemic has changed your writing, whether that means sort of in a functional way or your schedule. I have a feeling that you're probably not seeing your community of poets as much in person anymore. Can you talk a little bit about your pandemic writing?
Yeah. So in the last year, I've maybe written 4 poems. And yeah, it's just, I am the kind of poet who just needs time to process something in order to write about it. And I feel stymied by something that's like so big that it feels like you can't write about anything else because this is what has overtaken our lives. But at the same time, like, who am I to try and address that? So, you know, when I've written, it's been about other things, and I'll find that things related to quarantine life just insert themselves kind of on the sidelines, kind of tangentially. Because I also make other kinds of art, I have taken great solace in being able to do collage and mess around with other mediums that don't require words. Because I find that sometimes the words are just hard to find.
So this is going to be our last question tonight, and this is from Carl, and he is wondering how you found your lovely fellow poets and how did you develop that kind of collaborating relationship?
Thank you for that question. I love the opportunity to gush about these poets a little bit more. So we all live in Spokane, and with having readings on Zoom, you can ask people from anywhere really to read with you. And when I thought about how I envisioned this reading, I really just wanted to read with the Inland Jellyfish Collective. These are the people whose work has helped me grow as a poet and as a person, whose friendship has helped me. So we all live in the same town, and Spokane has a kind of magical writing community. It's big enough that there are a lot of people here who know what they're doing, and it's small enough that we all get to attend events together and meet each other. And it's very, what's the word? Where you support each other? Supportive, that's the word. And so, yeah, I think, if you live near people, that's great. But we also have connected using a private blog that we set up, just because that's a way we can each share our work and read it. And it's not something that people, outside have access to. So I can't tell you to go there and read it, but it's a place where we share our work and we can be in conversation about it. And it's just a place to feel connected and inspired. And it has really helped generate a lot of material for me. And then plus, as a bonus, like I said, Laura lives across the street from me. Ellen doesn't live too far away. So Maya's on the other side of town, but we let her in anyway. So, yeah.
All right, well, I think we'll leave it there for tonight. Congratulations on your beautiful book, Kat. Thank you so much for being willing to celebrate with aunties. Thank you, Ellen, Maya, and Laura for joining us tonight. And thank you to our wonderful audience. I hope everybody has an amazing night.